Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Raw Real Estate Podcast, where we strip down real estate investing and share some of the best tips, tricks, and strategies for rehabbing homes and creating value. I'm your host, Rod Wilson with Diversified Developers, and today we're talking with Ducky Grabill. Ducky is one of the top performers in Los Gatos and the surrounding area. She's been that way for decades. She knows how to maximize values of real estate, and on top of that, she's absolutely incredible and a joy to work with. How are you doing, Ducky?
I'm doing great, Rod. Fun to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad you're on. I'm looking forward to this interview. Before we get started, there's something I like to ask people that join the show. Can you share with it? You're a top performer, and we always like to hear what other people are doing. Share with us your morning routine to start your day.
Oh, great. So I'm up early. I'm an early bird, and I go for an hour meditation jog with my dog. And that gives me time. I'm outside in nature. It gives me time to think through all of the things that I need to get done that day, and just really centers me for the day. And I always like to do it alone with my dog. Then I have this incredible tonic that I make with incredible longevity tea and all kinds of maca, cacao, 5 different Chinese herbs, and some homemade almond milk. And then I have granola and yogurt and fruit. That's my routine.
Wow. Now that's awesome. So that is a secret. That's a secret recipe. Well, thanks for sharing that with us. I thought we'd start maybe just give a little bit of background on your, how you got into real estate, and just a little bit about your background.
Gosh, I was married to a general contractor, and he asked me, I had no intention of ever going to work, and he asked me to get my real estate license to sell a spec house. And I think because up to that point we had bought property and developed property, that I had a big advantage in that I understood what it cost to build a house. And so when I sold the first spec house, it was a very easy process because I could visualize what could be done from being in construction. And I think that was a huge advantage in getting into this business.
No, absolutely. That's where you're as a developer and investor, and obviously it's a lot of what we do is you really have to know to maximize the value. You're not really starting. You're starting with somewhat of a raw, a clear canvas, and you're trying to create something that translates well to the market. So. And actually, that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. So, Ducky, we'll just dive right in. The topic is around what we've talked about. You and I have talked about checking all the boxes. And you've got like a concept, or I guess a strategy that you call checking all the boxes related to selling homes fast and for the most value. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that means?
Well, when I first meet with sellers, I often encounter the fact that they're very much caught up into the square footage of the house relating to the value, which really is not the approach, because it really involves, if the property checks all the boxes, then you will maximize your price. And it comes down to looking at curb appeal. Floor plan flow is huge. Usable land is another big factor. Light, how current the house feels, and that's where it all gets down to staging and getting the house to put its best foot forward, involving landscaping and all of those things, which is something that I get very involved in. Process. It's part of, I feel, what I bring to the table is getting the house from point A to point B ready for market. Sometimes that can take a week, sometimes it can take 6 months, depending on the level that needs to happen, and sort of getting into this with the sellers as to what can be done. I mean, there's certain things you can't do to fix a floor plan flow, but by doing some things, opening up a wall or raising a ceiling, or adding, boxing in columns that are in the front that are very tiny. There's other things that you can do that can help check all the boxes. And I think it's a good reality check with the seller in trying to establish what should be done and where the value of the property is.
Yeah, so for people that are trying to apply this to themselves, whether they're an agent or someone who's selling their house, is it as simple as starting from the curb and starting with, colors, elevation, landscaping, and then kind of working our way through the house, entry, and or is there a process that you use that to start from, A and basically go to Z as far as, what you would even want to, recommend to a client to do to their house?
I usually start with the house first and end up with the landscaping, because it's really evaluating what the budget is and where you can put those funds to get the biggest bang for your buck. And it usually, your curb appeal in the front is a big factor, but it's really how much, you can utilize in bringing the house current as possible. And usually, at a minimum, you're dealing with carpet and paint and baseboard and light fixtures is a big thing. Usually it's assessing the value of the budget, and you can redo a kitchen for $7,500 without having to put $40,000 into a new kitchen. We establish the budget first, and that makes a big difference to whether or not we just paint the oak kitchen cabinets, or we new fronts on them, or we replace them. It really depends on the budget, but you can do a lot for $15,000 to get a house ready for market. You can do the carpet, you can do the paint, you can do the light fixtures, you can refinish the floors, you can do the landscaping. There's a lot of things that can be done if you've got cost-effective subs to help you, which is a good thing to have under your belt. Which I feel I have a great team of painters and landscape people that can do these things very cost effectively.
No, the costs are key, because you could double or triple depending on what subs or contractors you use. No, I couldn't agree more. And you mentioned lighting, but there's also just creating more light. There's simple things. At least when we're in the process of rehabbing a house, doing can lighting when you're tearing up the ceiling and revamping a whole house, a new sheetrock and everything. It's very incrementally. It's very inexpensive to do. And that seems like a pretty big factor usually is, creating enough light in the house, whether it's skylights or windows, or obviously the cost-effective approach is lighting.
Yeah, the recessed light, when you take out those low boxes that you see in these older kitchens and replace it with 4 canned lights, it's a huge improvement, and it's a major improvement. I mean, I usually don't get into skylights and putting in windows, but definitely doing the recessed lighting makes a huge difference.
Right. It
really does. Lighting is key, and that can be helped along with trimming trees that are close to the house, to create more light.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of things that can be done to improve the light, but light is probably is one of the biggest value effectors that people don't even think of.
And then you had talked about the cost of kitchen and cabinets. That seems like that's where you could spend the most money, but it seems like that's usually where you get the most bang for the buck. Do you have people focus in other areas as well? I mean, do you put more focus on the kitchen versus the baths, or it just depends, kind of depending on the house?
It depends on the budget. It depends on the house, but the kitchen is really probably the biggest factor. One of the other simple things to do is to replace all the interior doors with 2-paneled doors. And oil rub bronze or brushed nickel hardware. Debrassing a house is probably another very effective way to make a house feel more current. The interior doors, usually I'll focus on light fixtures and interior doors and paint and floor surfaces before going in and doing bathrooms. But kitchen is generally the biggest cost as to how to make it feel more current. And there's places, I have subs that can get quartz now, countertops for $1,500 that are fabricated on the spot, and and they look fabulous. They look like Carrara marble, the white with the gray veins. It's amazing what you can do on a tight budget.
Now you mentioned you had mentioned before, just about tops and stuff, and that's one of the areas I think that if you know what you're doing. I know you had talked about, I think before the call, about the benefit of using stagers and even having some either your own interior design expertise as far as how things should look color-wise and whatnot. But I think one area, because the tops are, we've found some stuff that's extremely cost-effective, but it looks very, very high-end look. So it's interesting you bring that up, because I think a lot of people think that when they see a new countertop, they think it's thousands and thousands of dollars, where you can get prefabbed, just standard depth countertops for a few $100s. And obviously you got install and fabrication, but that's where you can get a lot of bang for the buck.
It's true, and it makes a huge difference in how a kitchen or a bathroom looks. And people don't realize that there's cost-effective ways to get the house into current shape.
So in this theme of checking all the boxes, do you focus more with your client on like the high impact boxes, or do you go with the more cost-effective ones? Obviously, like paint's kind of a no-brainer. That's a real easy one. So how would you advise someone, like, where do you even start? Or do you just get a budget number, up front, and then once you get the budget, you kind of know where to go from there?
The budget pretty much dictates to what extent and to what level. And as far as where we go, but it also depends on the market, Rod. If the market is appreciating the way it has in the last 5 years, it's everything is a no-brainer. Everything that you put into the house, you get your money back and then some. But now that we're approaching a market that's starting to level out, you have to be more sensitive and conscientious about where you put your dollars. It was very easy in like I said, in an appreciating market, but right now you have to be very smart about where you put your money.
So are there some no-brainers to start? It's like paint and call it floors, carpet. Is that where you recommend everyone to start, and then from there, as the dollars go up, you start, getting a little bit more, specific to what you're trying to accomplish or the budget?
I would rate definitely paint and carpet is a minimum. Interior doors, I think, is huge, and light fixtures and landscaping. Those, when I look at the people that are on the tightest budgets, that is, and debrassing a house, that's the next level. But the primary level is really paint, carpet, floor surfaces, light fixtures, interior doors, and landscaping. That can, and then staging can transform a house. Then there's the debrassing, and then there's what you can do with the kitchen and the bathrooms, whether depending on what's needed to make them feel current. Sometimes just a new floor in the bathrooms and new light fixtures and medicine cabinet will do, once it's painted, will make a difference. You want to give people the feeling that they can move right in. And that's where, if the kitchen does need something, doing countertops and at least cabinet fronts or painting out the cabinets and new pulls is probably minimal of what you need to do, because by doing that, you can definitely give people the feeling that they can just move right in.
Yeah, I think
not have a big major project.
Yeah, a lot of people, I don't think, know that some of these things are actually, way more cost effective than they think. Number one, especially from the material side, and then, labor's gotten kind of crazy here in the Bay Area as we've continued, up the cycle here the last few years. But yeah, some of these I think people miss when we all walk those houses and we're like, wow, why didn't they at least do the carpet or the paint, or like you're saying, even interior doors aren't as expensive as you'd think if you had the right resource.
Yeah.
And then so a lot of, I've noticed, builders So I agree with you 100% on when someone buys a house, especially for if you're trying to get top dollar, buys a house, they want to move in, and what I tell people is they want to invite their friends over and have a party. They don't want to feel like, oh, well, we got to do the backyard or we got to do redo this or that. Just give them enough to where they could have their friends over and not be embarrassed.
Oh, that's great.
And what I notice is a lot of builders, they won't finish out. They'll leave a blank slate, they call it, or whatever, blank canvas in the backyard, and they won't do anything. It'll just be dirt. And I've kind of have disagreed and got into some good debates with some of my buddies that do this stuff. But what do you think about the landscaping, man?
You are right on. There's nothing more of a turnoff than having dirt in the backyard, and you have this nice, beautiful house, but you have to take on this whole project. I mean, you can get away without window treatments, but it's from a visual standpoint, having just the minimum in the backyard really goes a long way. I agree with you completely, Rod. If you're looking to get top dollar, I think that's a minor investment that should be made by everybody. And I know it's delicate. It's been really rough right now with the drought, because I met with a client last night, and the lawn in the front and the back is completely gone, and it's a tough one to get into. What do you do now with do you roll out sod? Do you reseed? I mean, and with the timing being a problem, it's what I'm running into now more than ever is what to do with the landscaping when we have this drought to deal with, because it makes it a little more challenging financially.
Yeah, so that's actually interesting, because we've gone back and forth on what we have done, from just kind of ground cover and filling in the space so there's something like you're saying it at least looks finished, versus, and what I used to do a lot of is just I would always be trying to, and this is as much a personal preference as far as a look, because a lot of times it'll make the lot look bigger if you just maximize the sod and put as much grass as you can. I mean, what would you typically advise someone to do? I mean, do you try and maximize the lawn for obviously, usability and family and kids, or is it a mixture of, drought resistance and I don't know, overall look and feel?
Well, it's overall to maximize the lawn space so that it's kid friendly, and that's probably always been the goal. More and more, we're looking towards some more drought-resistant kinds of things, and at least plantings that are drought-resistant, definitely, right. and that's becoming the trend for everyone.
Right.
But maximizing the usable space for families and for lawn area definitely has the largest impact. And of course, sod is not that expensive. It's not that it's a minor investment to at least give people an idea of where to start.
Right. Yeah. Exterior wise, I mean, we focus on entertaining area, and if it has some kind of covering, or I like to do the even paint grade trellises versus doing redwood or something, but doing something more cost effective, where you give someone that patio, covered patio, entertaining indoor outdoor feel as much as possible. And then number two would be, like you're saying, just maximize the amount of lawn. So let's see. So are there what are the top couple mistakes, or what mistakes do you encounter that people make? Either I assume it's not your clients, but what you see people doing when it comes to where they put their money and they're just throwing it down the drain.
Oh, that's a good question. Because usually what I see is that they don't de-brass a house, and they'll spend the money on something else, when something as simple as de-brassing the house is something that I would do. It's really not staging is a big mistake. I mean, I just can't imagine that the people wouldn't spend the money to stage a house, because I think that has made all the difference in many, many sales. So it's not really what I don't see glaring examples of people doing the wrong thing. I just mostly see glaring examples of people not doing the right thing.
Right.
Not doing what they should be doing. You don't see people. Usually, people just don't pour money in it at all. That should. You don't see them pouring in money into things that, or rarely. I'm trying to think of an example of where. Well, I take that back. I mean, there's some people with good taste and some people that don't have good taste.
Right.
And colors, I guess. Okay, so colors is probably, paint colors is a big one. I think that's when I've walked in a house and it's been a glaring mistake. It's usually been because of not good paint colors, and that's, I think, something that people really should consult with someone to make sure, either their agent or their stager or a paint consultant, to get the colors right, because when it's not right, it makes a huge difference in how the property feels.
Yeah, I'm partially colorblind, so I don't like to talk about people's colors too much, but I will tell you that in a lot of general contractors that I've seen, or even developers that don't have professionals do it, I wasn't thinking about that one, but that's a huge mistake that I think people do, where you can absolutely change the look, the feel, everything you get out of both interior and exterior with colors.
Right.
And I mean, my wife, I happen to have one of the best color people I think around. So I don't even begin to talk about colors. I let her handle it, and that's where the professionals come in. So that's a really good one. Well, we're kind of coming towards the end of the show, Ducky. I really appreciate your time and your feedback. And just to kind of recap, we've gone over some of the boxes that I think you want to check. And like you said, when the market's great, you could probably not check that many boxes and do okay. I think as things are, I'll call it stabilizing, maybe flattening and hopefully not softening too much. But when that starts to happen in the market, then it's important to check as many boxes as you can. And we've talked about curb appeal and the front elevation. We've talked about the land usage, the flow and layout of the house. That's obviously could be a bigger ticket item, but something that should be considered as far as unlocking value. The lighting is a big one. Upgrades and making it more current and feel more up to date. Oh, by the way, before we go, I meant to ask you, explain to me and to the audience, what do you mean by debrassing? Because I know what you mean, but there's probably people that don't know exactly what you mean by that.
Oh, okay, great. Well, when you walk into a house and you see brass doorknobs and brass light fixtures, it's definitely screams, late 90s to me.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much door hinges and doorknobs, and it's throughout the whole house, and the light fixtures are brass. I mean, they say brass is coming back, but I think there's an antique brass look that might be becoming a little popular. But the shiny brass doorknobs and door hinges and light fixtures and bathroom faucets, that it's probably one of the biggest things that dates a house. And by eliminating that with either brushed nickel or oil rub bronze, will just make a house feel more current. And it gets a little tricky when you get into the bathrooms, because if you have shower enclosures and shower fixtures that are brass, it can get expensive. So sometimes you have to kind of pick your battles with the main living areas, but it's one way, especially if you're replacing the interior doors, and even the front door, when that's brass, it's usually I'll just have people do the front door and the interior doors, and maybe not do the exterior doors to try to minimize the expense. But that's a big item that screams dated to me.
Okay. Yeah. No, I could not agree more. Yeah, we're seeing gold, and it's funny, not me, my wife, to give her credit. She was pretty early on with the gold, and I just, of course, didn't see it and didn't really agree with it, actually. And sure enough, we've seen that, some of the black and gold, come up, and which is actually a look I really like. But But anyway, yeah, get rid of the brass. The brass is
Yeah.
tired.
Yeah, it really is.
So the last couple things, just to round out our list of the boxes we're checking, we talked about landscape, and then obviously staging. I could not agree more. I've never sold a house without being professionally staged. It's a way to really just change the whole flow and feel of a house. So I agree with you there too as well. Well, thanks again, Ducky. I appreciate you being on, and a lot of really good info.